Buckle up, football fans. It's time for Toyota Talks.
All right, great to have the Athletics' Ted Wynn here joining us on this Thursday. Big news, of course. The Bears are moving on from DJ Moore, trading him along with a 2026 fifth-round pick to the Buffalo Bills. DJ Moore will now get to play with the former MVP Josh Allen. The Bills obviously needed some help when it came to wide receiver. He's going to be their number one target. As for the Bears, they get back a 2026 second-round pick. First off, Ted, give me your reactions to this trade.
I mean, at first I thought it was kind of whirlwind for me, honestly, because at first I thought, all right, this is kind of an underwhelming move for the Bills, who really need a number one type of receiver. To me, DJ Moore is not a number one receiver, and I think Chicago fans have seen this play out throughout the years, especially last year when there were so many low effort type of plays. He was essentially relegated to a number three type of role. Behind a number three or number four type of role behind Adunze, behind maybe even Burden, behind Colston Loveland at the end of the year. So with that contract, getting paid that much money, I think the Bears are ecstatic to be able to trade that contract away, and not only trade him away, but get a second round pick, which is extremely valuable in today's day and age. So I think this gets an A+ for Ryan Poles getting this move done and getting that contract off the books.
Okay, so you mentioned DJ Moore's contract. He signed a 4-year, $110 million extension in July 2024, and his contract was going to be the largest cap hit on this roster at 28.5 million. Trading him now clears up 16.5 million. On top of the Drew Dalman news this week in terms of him retiring, that also frees up 10 million for them. So the Bears right now have cleared up 26.5 million in cap space. You just said something that was interesting to me. You don't think DJ Moore is a number one wide receiver. Not a number one wide receiver here for the Bears, or not at all even in Buffalo, because I mean the Bills needed some help there, and it looks like he's going to be the Bills and Josh Allen's number one target.
He's their number one in terms of the guy that will get a ton of targets in that offense because he's the best receiver in that room. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he's a number one type of receiver, as in defensive coordinators are going to send double teams at him. Defensive coordinators are going to stay up late at night trying to game plan for him. I think he'll be a productive wide receiver, especially with Josh Allen, who's a top 3-2-1 quarterback in the league, throwing him the ball. But then you could argue that they could have went after a guy like AJ Brown, and he would get a boost from playing with Josh Allen as well. But I mean, the Bills side of things, I think it's just not good business. I think they were desperate to try to upgrade at wide receiver, and Ryan Poles took advantage of that, got a number 2 pick from them. And for them, they also restructured his deal. So he's only going to count against $7 million against the cap this year. So they do have a little bit more space to work with, maybe add another receiver, but it also locks them in long term to DJ Moore, having to give him more money as he gets older, or more guaranteed money as he gets older. So to me, this is a move that could work out, but it's a really desperate move from the Bills, and the Bears, I think, took advantage of that.
Now, you said just now, desperate move by the Bills, but do you think the timeline matches up with Josh Allen, given where DJ Moore is right now in his career, really in his prime?
I think it does. I mean, again, I think he'll probably be productive in that offense. But I just think that the opportunity cost is what's really damaging for the Bills, because now that money is tied up to DJ Moore. They cannot go after another wide receiver, which I think could have an even bigger impact on the Bills offense. Like, Alec Pierce, a young wide receiver who's on the upswing, who just had put up crazy efficiency, explosive numbers last year. They could have went after him. Obviously, he would have been more expensive. They could have went after a guy like Mike Evans, who's looking for a new team. I think Mike Evans would have been amazing in that offense, but I just don't think they have the cap space to be able to try to sign him now. I think trading for DJ Moore means, yes, you get a guarantee he's on your team. It's not a guarantee that you're going to sign one of those free agent wide receivers. but I just don't know you're getting the most bang for your buck here.
Okay. DJ Moore's coming off a season that saw him see career lows in catches and receiving yards. Ryan Poles said last week at the NFL Combine, we value DJ Moore. We think highly of him. Although, and Poles said this that really stood out to me. I have nothing but great things to say about him, but this is the time now where we have to look at all the different scenarios that will allow us to put the best team out there. Do you think this was the right time for the Bears to move on from DJ Moore?
Absolutely. I mean, it was already the writing was on the wall for him that he was already getting phased out of the offense. I think Luther Burden is going to essentially take his role and be even a more explosive receiver in this offense. And like I mentioned, he was going to be the third, fourth option. And to get paid north of $25 million to be a third or fourth option would have been a total waste of cap space and money. So to be able to just clear him off the books, get more targets to some of your young receivers. Just optimal decision making to me.
What do you say to the people who will kind of argue that, but DJ Moore delivered in really big moments, including he had the game winning touchdown against Green Bay in week 16, had a touchdown in the Bears' two playoff games as well in January. So you have to admit, though, the Bears won some of those games because of him.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to diminish being able to make those big plays in big moments, but it's not to say that Roma Dunze couldn't do that, or Burden can't develop into a receiver that could do that. We saw Colston Loveland dominate against the Green Bay Packers and make those huge plays after huge plays in that game. So to me, I think you have these young receivers that are budding. You spent capital on them. You spent a first round pick on Dunze. You drafted Burden relatively high. You have to depend on those guys and hope that they can make those big plays down the stretch.
Just clearing up space for the Bears to go out and get Maxx Crosby. Give me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the first things I thought of when they cleared. They made that trade. They cleared up a ton of space to get a second round pick, which could be used as ammo in a potential Maxx Crosby trade. And also, they could clear a ton of cap space by either cutting Tremaine Edmonds or including him in a trade package for Maxx Crosby as well.
So when we talk about the Bears offense and what it looks like now, because I will say, and I said this on our Sunday show this past weekend, that I do think that the Bears needed to trade DJ Moore. I think it was a tough conversation that needed to be had because I think the offense can still be explosive given all the weapons that they still have for Caleb Williams, Colston Loveland, a really good receiving tight end, Luther Burden, Romo Dunze as well, and who knows, maybe Jade Walker too. But I'm curious what you think about this. Who does this put more pressure on right now? Because I would imagine Romo Dunze is the number one wide receiver right now. But at the same time, when you look at last season for Rome, things didn't pan out. He didn't have the season that he wanted.
Yeah, for sure. I think some of that had to do with a foot injury that he suffered. I mean, it's really hard to play a wide receiver when you're not cutting at full speed off of one of your 1 foot. I think the most pressure is actually on Colston Loveland because to me, Colston Loveland is going to
Right.
be your de facto number one receiver. I think he's going to get a ton of targets.
Right.
And we saw how effective he could be towards the end of the year. So there's going to be a ton of pressure on Dunze too, who was drafted extremely high. But to me, Colston Loveland is going to be that guy that should be leading your team in receiving yards at the end of the year.
Yeah, we did see Colston Loveland get more and more comfortable as the season progressed on. Stellar rookie season and really became Caleb Williams' go-to target, especially in those critical downs and critical situations. We talked a few weeks ago, and you told me you thought that Trey Hendrickson would be a better fit on this Bears defense, on the Bears D line. Obviously, if you're the Bears, you know that you need to add an elite edge rusher. And if it's Maxx Crosby, Trey Henderson, you just know you need extra help here. Do you still feel that same way, or would you still be okay with the Bears going out and swinging big and getting and adding a player like Maxx Crosby?
Um, I still think if you can sign Trey Hendrickson, that would be a better use of capital to me because you wouldn't have to trade away those first round picks to get him. But he also might end up costing more as in terms of contract dollars than Maxx Crosby. Crosby's on a relatively team friendly deal with this extension. And Trey Hendrickson, you're going to have to get into a bidding war, and there's just not a lot of pass rushers on the free agent market right now. So you're going to be bidding against several teams, and that contract dollar, that APY, is going to keep going up and up. So I don't know how high that goes up and how much the Bears could ultimately afford in a bidding war. But it also seems like you might be able to afford Maxx Crosby's contract if you make a trade with the Raiders. So it's a very difficult conversation. I think with Crosby, he does offer a little bit more juice than Hendrickson. But like I mentioned, Dennis Allen, he loves those power rushers, and Hendrickson did play for him in his system. So it's a difficult conversation, and I can see it going either way. But I think the Bears are going to be in a running for both those players.
So it has been reported that the Raiders want 2 first-round picks and a player, which is pretty similar to the Micah Parsons deal, the trade with the Cowboys and the Packers. Do you think that is what the Raiders are asking for? Is that fair, given the history of injuries that Crosby has been dealing with? And also, he just had surgery a few months ago, so he's kind of still rehabbing, working through that knee injury. But is that fair? A fair ask there if you are the Las Vegas Raiders?
I think fair just depends on what the market is going to offer you. So um, I think right now teams are desperate for a number one type of pass rusher. There's just not a lot of those in the league, and I think at first it seems like way too much for Maxx Crosby, who's not the same player as Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, I think, is a better pass rusher, younger player. Maxx Crosby, as we know, is a little bit older. He's also hurt right now. He's hurt, and he's healing from surgery too. So all those things have to be taken into consideration. But if you have one team that's offering 2 first rounds, then you have to be able to beat that offer to get him. So it is a steep price, but if teams are willing to pay that, and it seems like there are several teams that are at least entertaining that offer. I think right now, obviously, nobody's offered that yet, or else a deal would have been done. But I think it just seems like as more teams get into this conversation and more teams are really interested in getting Crosby, I think eventually a team's going to meet that demand.
Want to touch base with you on the Drew Dalman news as well, because we know that the Bears are also in the market for a center. But just to kind of round out the DJ Moore conversation, Moore's headed to Buffalo. Bears are getting back a 2026 second round pick. Bears are sending DJ Moore along with a 2026 fifth round selection as well. You mentioned earlier in this interview kind of a low effort from DJ Moore, him being the number 3 or 4 wide receiver in this offense. Now that obviously the Bears finished the season 11-6, made it to the division round of the playoffs, how do you put into words how DJ Moore fit into Ben Johnson's offense?
I think the issue is Ben Johnson wants everything extremely precise. He wants you to run routes at the exact depth you're supposed to get into, at the timing you're supposed to. You're supposed to line up in the exact split on different types of plays, different type of concepts. And to me, Moore wasn't ever a very detailed receiver. I think he was a very athletic, talented receiver that could create after the catch. You have to design certain plays for him to get the ball in his hands. But he just was never that super precise route runner that will fit into a Ben Johnson offense. And maybe with the Bills and playing with a very chaotic quarterback like Josh Allen, who is empowered to do that, with the Bills actually kind of depend on that, whereas the Bears are trying to coach a little bit that out of Caleb Williams. Maybe he fits in that style a little bit more, but it was just very obvious there was a disconnect with Caleb Williams, with DJ Moore in Ben Johnson's offense. So it just makes sense that a divorce was coming.
Okay, let's talk about Drew Dalman and his sudden retirement news here. When I got the notification, I had to do a double take on my phone. I was thinking, am I reading this right? Because he's 27 years old. Um, they got him last offseason when they were trying to just completely overhaul the interior of the offensive line. And he signed a 3-year, $42 million contract. He's walking away from that. Had 2 years left on that deal, 5 seasons in the NFL, 4 with the Falcons here this last season with the Bears. If I am Ryan Poles, obviously you look at this offensive line. The left tackle position was a question mark with them expecting Ozzie Trapillo to really miss the majority of the 2026 season. Now you need a center, and you also, I think, need a backup right tackle as well. Someone to back up Darnell Wright. Who are some realistic options for the Bears? Who do you think the Bears could get to where maybe that drop off wouldn't be as drastic here? Because you did, by the way, have a quarterback that was building some chemistry with Drew Dalman.
Yeah, I mean that the center is so important in this offense. It's outside zone offense where you're the guy who's in charge of cutting that play in half and creating that cutback lane at times. And he was such a godsend for Caleb Williams because he was making the calls at the line of scrimmage and just took a load off of his shoulders. So that news was stunning to me. And replacing this center position is going to be one of the biggest things the Bears have to do. I think Tyler Valdez from the Commanders, who just got released, is a starting caliber center. Obviously, he doesn't offer the star power that Dalman offers. Tyler Lindenbaum is going to be one of the most in-demand centers in this free agency period. Actually, most in-demand free agents period. So he's going to get paid north of $20 million per year, and the Bears probably won't be able to do that if they end up signing Crosby or trading for Crosby or signing Hendrickson. But that's the top end center if you want him. Connor McGovern from the Bills. It looks like he's going to test free agency as well. But he's going to be one of the more in demand guys. But will he take a little bit less money to go to the Bears, who could be a could be a contender next season? There is I'm blanking on his name right now, but the Panthers are Caden Mays. But I'm gonna look at his name right now. Cade Mays is a free agent as well. He's from the Panthers, and he's going to be one of the probably the third most in demand center as well. So that's another option to look at.
All right, Ted Wynn, we always appreciate your time. Thanks for hopping on with us today just to react to all these news. I'm pretty sure the Bears are not done making moves here, so we'll check in with you pretty soon.